Kenya's presidential election is less than 2 months away. We'll tell you what's at stake. How access to midwives is enhancing the health of mothers and their babies. And how Muslims around the world are observing Ramadan. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Now, we'll have those stories in a moment, but first, at least 12 people were killed Thursday in Northeastern Democratic Republic of Congo in heavy fighting between the army and militia fighters. Local activists say several students taking exams were wounded in an explosion at a school. They're fighting in and around the city of Beni between Congo's army and what is believed to be a new coalition of armed groups. The National Movement of Revolutionaries has killed at least 8 militiamen and 4 soldiers. Clashes, some of which occurred near the mayor's office, erupted early Thursday morning, but the army had driven back the militias by mid-afternoon. Now, the mayor and a local army spokesman could not be immediately reached for comment. Islamic State militants have blown up the iconic Al-Nouri Mosque in Mosul as Iraqi forces work to eradicate the terror group from one of its last strongholds in the city. The medieval mosque had stood for more than 8 centuries and was there where Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi declared Islam himself caliph over parts of Iraq and Syria. As Iraqi and coalition forces move closer to retaking Mosul in Iraq, coalition forces battling the terror group in Syria are finding themselves in a shrinking battle zone that has led to more hostile interactions with forces allied with the Syrian government. Now, viewers, Carla Babb discussed the complexities of the counter-ISIS fight in Iraq, Syria and Afghanistan with Chief Pentagon spokesperson Dan White in her first sit-down one-on-one interview since starting her post 2 months ago.
Tensions have escalated exponentially, it feels like, this month with the downing of 2 Iranian-directed, Iranian-made drones. We've also had the downing of the Syrian jet. How concerned are U.S. officials here at the Pentagon that this could escalate into a bigger war and put the United States in a bigger war in Syria than just the fight against ISIS?
I think it's really important to understand that our mission in Syria is about defeating ISIS, period. We have been very clear about our intentions and our objectives there. And so we always reserve the right to defend ourselves as well as our coalition partners. And that's why it's really important for everyone, it's a complicated area, that everyone use the deconfliction mechanism that's been set up to ensure that we can de-escalate situations quickly.
Let's talk about that deconfliction hotline. Is there actually any line of communication still working between the Russians as of right now?
We are always available on that line. The line is open. So we use it. We want people to use it. It has proven very effective.
Without getting into specifics and intelligence, have they used the line or have they reciprocated any communication between the U.S.?
Well, I will say that the line is open. You only know until you call.
All right, let's switch to the counter-Islamic State fight in Afghanistan. Is Islamic State spreading in Afghanistan?
I would say that right now it's not getting better in Afghanistan in terms of ISIS. We have a problem, and we have to defeat, and we have to be focused on that problem.
And as the strategy for Afghanistan is shaping up, I know it's not been solidified yet, but there are people that have said we're looking at a few thousand more American troops, hundreds more international troops. Are any of those forces, do you envision, going towards the counter-Islamic State fight and the counter-terrorism fight against al-Qaeda?
The Secretary is considering all of the options. He is reviewing with his commanders what they need, what kinds of forces they need, and the number in which they need them. But I think it's very important to remember that that is within the context of a much broader strategy and also understanding what are our partners willing to do.
Is Secretary Mattis waiting to speak with his counterparts in Brussels before making a decision on Afghanistan?
Absolutely. Listen, we really do have to also talk to our partners. We have to think about what else they can bring to bear to help. So I know everyone wants to know what's going to happen, but the Secretary is being very deliberative and very thoughtful about what the commanders need and what's necessary to change the tide.
Well, for more on the counter-ISIS fight, VOA's Carla Babb joins me from the Pentagon. Now, Carla, the global fight is clearly becoming more complicated. Did Dana White say anything at all about what's taking so long to push Islamic State out of Mosul?
You know, Vincent, I asked her that question and she just did not go there. I pointed out that the situation for the last little bit of western Mosul kind of reminded me of the situation in Sirte, Libya. If you recall, Islamic State had a couple of neighborhoods that they just would not give up for months. But while she wouldn't go there, the Iraqi government certainly is pointing out that the end seems to be near. They said that the destruction of the Al-Nouri Mosque was a clear indication that Islamic State knows that they are losing, and they said, why else would they destruct something, or would they destroy something that is such a symbolic presence of their caliphate? The Islamic State did say that it was not them that destroyed the mosque, it was the coalition, but we have not seen any evidence to support that claim.
Now, we know you did kind of mention, bring up the issue of Afghanistan. Hard to believe there isn't still a strategy in place there, especially now that the Pentagon says that even the Islamic State situation is not even getting better, right?
Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting to know that General John Nicholson, the commander on the ground in Afghanistan, has said that he had the adequate number of forces for the counterterrorism fight against Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. He said that back in February, but that was before the Islamic State made gains in the caves in Tora Bora and Nangarhar province. That was before they made gains in this province in northern Afghanistan called Jawzan province. But people here in the Pentagon have stressed to me not to take these gains without the full context. They said Tora Bora is, in all reality, just a bunch of caves in a very remote area, not a lot of civilians affected. But while all this is going on, the United States has yet to get a strategy out there, and we are now in the middle of the fighting season. The Taliban seems to be capitalizing on this fact. There was just an attack today in Helmand province. A bombing killed about 30 people as they were trying to collect their salaries at a bank in Helmand.
Well, we'll keep waiting and keep us posted, Carla. Thank you very much. That's VOA's Pentagon correspondent Carla Babb coming to us live from the Pentagon. Now, authorities in Belgium said Thursday police have detained 4 people in connection with the investigation into the foiled bomb attack at a Brussels train station. The Federal Prosecutor's Office says the detentions were part of raids in Brussels. There were no details about how the 4 people might be linked to the attack. The suspect in Tuesday's attack has been identified as a 36-year-old Moroccan native with the initials OZ, who may have supported the Islamic State militant group. Chemicals and other materials that can be used to make explosives were found in his home. The device hidden in a suitcase failed to fully detonate and did not injure anyone. The suspected attacker was shot and killed after confrontation with police. Now, in less than 2 months, Kenyans will hold presidential and general elections. But as VOA's 54 Haiti Adams Fitzpatrick reports, its elections have not always run smoothly. Here's what's at stake at this moment.
When Kenyans go to the polls on August 8th, it will be as much about the country's past as the future. A test for democracy and political stability in one of Africa's most developed countries. If Kenyans are on edge, it's with good reason. These images are burned into the national psyche. The disputed outcome of the 2007 election triggered 2 months of conflict that quickly spiraled into ethnic violence. More than 1,200 people were killed and roughly 500,000 fled their homes. It was the worst bloodshed the country had seen since independence in 1963. The 2013 elections were largely peaceful, but failing electronic tallying equipment stoked voter concerns of fraud and prompted the opposition to take its complaints to the Supreme Court. Several people died in protests. This year's presidential race is a rematch between familiar opponents. Incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta rose to power in 2013 as Kenya's youngest head of state. The wealthy son of Kenya's first president is seeking a second term in office. His ruling Jubilee Party is new. It was formed last year in a merger of 12 political parties that support the president. Kenyatta faces Raila Odinga. The veteran politician and former Prime Minister Kenyatta beat in 2013. Odinga has run for president 3 times before and comes from one of Kenya's most powerful political families. He leads the National Super Alliance, an umbrella for all parties opposed to Kenyatta. The president is touting economic growth as he lays out his case for re-election, saying his government has funded the most aggressive development drive in the country's history. He's playing down problems that have plagued his administration: deadly terror attacks, strikes by teachers, nurses and doctors, failing banks, and a string of corruption scandals that have drained government coffers of tens of millions of dollars. The opposition has turned these failings into a rallying call. Security and rampant corruption are likely to take center stage, alongside the government's handling of a severe drought that has driven up food prices and fueled inflation. The shortage of maize, a staple food for most Kenyans, also known as unga, has spawned the election hashtag Unga Revolution. Kenyans have increasingly turned to social media to debate election issues amid concerns of political bias in the mainstream media. There is something new this cycle: the political map. In 2013, Kenya began devolving power to its 47 counties to manage local infrastructure. This approach has heightened tensions. Parts of Kenya saw small-scale violence and protests during chaotic primaries earlier this year. Dozens of primary races had to be suspended and rerun. It's a political tightrope that has given international observers a glimpse of potential fault lines in the upcoming polls. Elections are by their very nature divisive, and Kenyans have a history of voting largely along ethnic lines. The International Monetary Fund is warning that political instability could slow growth in Kenya's $69 billion economy, putting progress at risk in one of Africa's most volatile regions. Heidi Adams-Fitzpatrick, VOA News, Washington.
Well, the European Union on Thursday pledged nearly $95 million to help fund relief operations for hundreds of thousands of refugees flowing into Uganda from neighboring South Sudan. The EU pledging statement came ahead of a meeting in Uganda's capital, Kampala, on Friday, aimed at raising some $2 billion to plug funding shortages for the East African country's surging refugee population. Now, the money would fund operations for 12 months from June. Uganda is hosting about 1.3 million refugees, of which an estimated 950,000 have arrived from South Sudan, displaced by the country's escalating civil war. Friday's summit is jointly organized by the United Nations and Uganda. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54, the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends also. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Coming up, making progress in improving global health, but there is still work to be done. Stay with us.
I wanted to present music and a side of American culture that is most important to me, that is a part of who I am. They're going to get some incredible performances. That's one of the things I love, bringing these artists in so you can get to see them do what they do. It's soul music, and that's what music is. It's that which comes from the soul.
Health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lina Omadou with a look at how midwives are saving lives.
The World Health Organization says there have been unprecedented progress since 1990 in improving global health outcomes, thanks in part to the priority given to the health community in the Millennium Development Goals, rather. However, progress in achieving the MDGs has been uneven, with the poorest and most marginalized people still being denied the most basic health services. The WHO says the quantity, skills, and geographic distribution of the health workforce have been recognized as factors that have held back even greater and more equitable progress on the health-related MDGs. Experts say more needs to be done to ensure that health workers in low-income countries receive the training and support they need if the world aims to reach the health targets of the post-2015 United Nations Development Agenda. Joining me for more on the subject is Dr. Lucy Mfuru, Tanzania Country Director with IntraHealth International, a global health organization dedicated to improving the performance of health workers and strengthening health systems. Dr. Mfuru, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
It's good to have you. Listen, I was just in Toronto attending a midwives conference, and I spoke to many of the participants. One of the issues they kept talking about is training and the need for recognitions. And when I heard that and I look at what is happening today, it seems like these issues is across the board when it comes to the health workforce. And this is an issue that you address. Tell us about this situation.
Thank you. To tell you the truth, there has been a shortage of healthcare workers globally. WHO estimates that there's a shortage of about 9 million health workers globally, and if nothing is being done, it will double to 18 million by the year 2030.
That's a serious problem when we see, especially in places, rural communities where, you know, you don't find that many health workers.
It's true. At the moment, there is an equal distribution of health workers. Even those who are available, they are not equally distributed. There are issues around not only that there is not enough health workers in country, but those who are also available, they are not equally distributed. We need to start investing in health workers. We need to make sure that we have fit for purpose and fit for practice health workers. No health workers, it means no health services. The government and the leaders have to invest more on health workers and make sure that we train the health workers, we provide them with support, we give them mentorship, we supervise them, and we have to make sure that going forward we invest more on building a resilient and a sustainable health workforce to be able to reach the goals which we have been looking forward to reach, like the SDG goals or the maternal and child mortality rate goals, which the reduction we want to reach.
We saw some progress with regards to the MDGs in some areas such as maternal and child death. There has been a reduction. But it seems like when we talk about addressing global health, a lot of emphasis is put on service delivery as opposed to training or even the workforce as we're talking about. Now, tell us about the work that you do and how, through the organization or IntraHealth, you are addressing this issue.
Oh, thank you. IntraHealth is a champion of health workers. We have spending a couple of years focusing mainly on healthcare workers. We work with the governments to make sure that they have health workers who are ready, who are trained, and who are supported to provide services at the high qualities in the country we are working. We have been focusing mainly on not only helping the government with the production of health workers, but working through the retention strategies. We have health workers, but they need to be fairly compensated. We need to make sure that they are motivated to do their work. We need to make sure that their performance is enhanced through either training, to make sure that the pre-service trainings, any gap which is existing on pre-service training, we work with the government to make sure that we are able to provide technical assistance on that. We are doing in-service training to make sure that we have competent health workers. We work with the government to develop mentorship programs, and we want to make sure also those health workers are coached and are equally distributed using the tools which are evidence-based tools.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much. We know that you're here to advocate about this and other issues, and good luck during your time here in Washington.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And that was Dr. Lucy Mfuru. She's Tanzania's country director with IntraHealth International. Now, the World Meteorological Organization says the Earth is experiencing another exceptionally warm year. Meteorologists report North Africa and the Middle East are experiencing extremely hot weather with temperatures topping 50 degrees Celsius. Extremely high temperatures also have been recorded in Spain and in France, which issued an Amber Alert, the second highest alert level, on Tuesday. The WMO reports near record heat is also being reported in California and in the Nevada deserts. At least 60 people have been killed in the devastating forest fires in central Portugal, and the WMO says one of the contributing factors are very high temperatures that have exceeded 40 degrees Celsius.
Parts of Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, and the USA have seen very, very high May and June temperatures. The heat waves are unusually early, and they are occurring in the context of the Earth experiencing yet another exceptionally hot year.
Heat waves are very critical for health. As you know, in past heat waves, such as the one which affected Europe in 2003, there are some figures of mortality linked to heat wave of about 70,000 additional mortality because of the heat wave. Recently, in 2015, in the Indian subcontinent, Pakistan and India recorded about 4,000 deaths associated with very short heat wave.
Many scientists predict climate change will cause heat waves to become more intense, more frequent, and longer. The World Meteorological Organization warns that if the necessary precautions are not taken, many people will die from the heat. And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @LenorMoudou. Back to you, Vincent.
Well, thanks a lot, Lenore. I'll be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health report every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. And it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, how the world's Muslims observe Ramadan. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. As many as 100 people may have been killed in a day of clashes between rival factions in the Central African Republic's diamond mining town of Bria. The UN Security Council backs a West African force to combat militant groups as well as arms, drug and human trafficking to fight terrorism in the Sahel region. Zimbabwe joins UN agencies and non-governmental organizations to appeal for a $10.9 million aid for thousands of refugees in the country. In Kenya, Wildlife Service says that the elephant population in the East African country has increased by 14.7% in the last 3 years. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. Iceland has topped the 2017 Global Peace Index for the 10th consecutive year. And as the endless daylight of the summer solstice approaches, the Nordic island is preparing for another successful tourist season. From nearly June to mid-July, it's one of the world's best places to watch the midnight sun, an astral phenomenon in which the sun never sets. The icy waters off the coast of Iceland are the perfect location for whale watching, especially during summer months. Some 1.8 million people, almost 6 times the country's population, are expected to visit this year, up from 500,000 in 2010, according to Iceland's tourism office. Now, next up, more than 12,000 yogis showed up in New York's Times Square for 7 free yoga classes throughout the day on Wednesday. With downward-facing dogs and sun salutations, they were celebrating the 15th annual solstice in Times Square. This year's theme is Mind Over Madness Yoga. The event was streamed live on Facebook and Twitter's Periscope. Yoga is a science that dates back to as many as 5,000 years. of 175 countries participated in the day's celebrations. Well, and finally, green burials are slowly gaining ground in the U.S. to accommodate people who want a low carbon footprint even in death. The movement goes back more than a decade, though advocates say more public attention has been paid to green burials in the last few years. Green burials can save consumers money and have nurtured a market for biodegradable urns and coffins. Green burial practices are legal in all 50 U.S. states, and that is what is trending today. Now, the Muslim holy month of Ramadan is well underway, and many believers are carrying out one of the 5 pillars of Islam with fasting and reflection. Viewers, Mariama Diallo reports on various local traditions among Muslims around the world and how they observe the breaking of each day's fast.
Most of the world's nearly 1.5 billion Muslims are observing the holy month of Ramadan, when those in good health fast between sunrise and sunset. Ibrahim Hooper of the Council on American Islamic Relations explains the spiritual benefit of foregoing food and drink.
It teaches compassion for those who are less fortunate, those who can't eat or drink through no choice of their own. When you come upon a situation where you could help someone in that situation, you're far more likely to help them if you've experienced that.
Each day as the sun goes down, the fast is broken with iftar. The ritual meal is an observance many, like these Bosnians, look forward to as they sit down with friends and family. In Sudan, a Khartoum resident prepares asida, a porridge served with stews.
Asida is the main meal of the iftar during the month of Ramadan. It's eaten just after breaking the fast because it is good and useful for the stomach. It is made from corn flour.
The focus on iftar can drive up food prices. In Pakistan's Swat Valley, shoppers are getting hit twice.
Compared to last year, prices of edibles have increased by roughly 50% this year. With the arrival of Ramadan, prices go up, and that considerably affects our business.
Most of the people who live in the predominantly Kurdish city of Kamizlo in northern Syria also complain about high prices.
Everybody is not rich here. Fruits and vegetables are too expensive. Tomatoes, cucumbers are expensive. There is no control over prices. There should be control over the market, especially on tea, coffee, and sugar.
Yet despite the hardships and often the help of charitable neighbors, most are able to enjoy the community and spirituality of these holy days. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
And that's our show. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. When something loses its original shape or form, it does not look very natural or comfortable.
Bent out of shape.
Hey, did you tell Greg about my dinner party?
Yeah, I did. I thought he was invited.
Well, now he's all bent out of shape because I didn't invite him.
I'm sorry.